Phone Show, ladies and gentlemen, or whoever's out there listening. That's what you're watching right now. Hey, Scott, glad to see you back, man. Glad you could tolerate us. Leave us some message. We'll try to check back through there. Let's see. Today is the 17th day of November, 2019. We do this twice a week, live, 4 o'clock right here on this channel, and then I post a timestamp copy, all the subjects timestamped up on YouTube and Twitter under Jimmy Doane. Search for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E, and you can find us at a bunch of places around the web in audio format as well. All right. What is happening today? I got a special transporter location for us today.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Alive?
Yeah, well, yes. This is
okay. Cool.
See, we're totally here. I swear.
Yeah, right. That's right. We're here. Well, lots of stuff happening actually since we last spoke. Although I'll get to it one thing at a time. The first thing is we have a new presidential contender. The former governor, Deval Patrick, will run for the 2020 Democratic nomination. There's still about 18 people in the field running for the Democratic nomination. And so Patrick Deval, now it's interesting, I did not know this, but this is what they felt they had to put in the story. Patrick, who made history as Massachusetts' first black governor.
Now, is his name Patrick Deval or Duval Patrick?
You're right. It is Deval Patrick. You're exactly correct.
Okay.
I sit here, I read it wrong. You're exactly right.
Well, you did it right the first time.
Okay, Deval Patrick.
That's
whatever.
Wait a minute.
Anyway, the Honorable Patrick, whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows, whatever. Served for about almost 10 years. Should gain traction in New Hampshire and Maine because he's right next door. However, he has to compete with Bernie and what's her name?
Elizabeth,
yeah. Liz and Bernie, right, who also are next door.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. The New Hampshire, I did not know this, but the New Hampshire deadline for the primary was 2 days ago, Friday. So either you filed by then or you're not getting in the primary. What?
That's interesting. For New Hampshire, so
yeah. Well, remember now, the New Hampshire. I think it's in like the first weekend in February or something.
Okay.
So they have to have time to print up the ballots.
Yeah, and I know they've moved some things around. I'm just wondering. It seems like here we are in mid-November. I mean, are you not suggesting that nobody else can now run because they can't even get on the ballot in New Hampshire? Are you?
Well, they can't get on the ballot. They can run. Oh, of course they can run. Of course they can run. They're just not going to be on the ballot in New Hampshire in the primary. They're not going to be on because they have to print the ballots up in advance. You know how they're kind of slow at printing those things up. I mean, don't get me wrong. There'll probably be a place for write-in.
Yeah.
On the ballot, but there's the ballot's going to be 18 people. Mm-hmm. Unless
I'm worried about my Hillary prediction now. I'm worried.
Oh no, that's right.
See,
that's right. Well, no, and we would know, by the way, if she had signed up because that's kind of public information.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see why you'd be worried.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. You and I colluded on this. We thought for sure she was going to kick in by now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But if she didn't sign up for the New Hampshire by Friday.
Does she need? I don't remember where New Hampshire falls in.
It's the second one. It's right after Iowa.
No, I meant in terms of the political spectrum. I mean, it's a Democratic stronghold. So,
I don't know about that. They've been Republican off and on. I mean, but they're. I don't know. It's interesting. I've been watching going up over my West Wing again. And I'm at the point now where, what's funny is there's a guy, Jimmy Smits, who is running for president because it's Bartlett's out now. This is at the end of his second term. And they're talking, and they have like 2 entire shows on the New Hampshire primary and what they have to do to go around and shake the hand. They're up there in snow and cold and everything for 2 hours of show, which is, like 2 weeks. on the West Wing. But what's interesting is here we are coming up on the New Hampshire primary, and this show was written in '94. Okay, what is that? 94? That's 20 years ago or so, more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's as if. No, I'm sorry. It was written in 2004. So the 15 years ago. What's interesting, it could be, it is exactly what's happening up there, except there's more people running. It's so funny because this.
Well, and of course, then Buttigieg has now surged to the lead in the
surge. That's right.
That's
he has
right.
In Iowa, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll see whether or not he steps in.
Well, as I tell people, I've told people this so many times that in 1992, Bill Clinton literally was an unknown until January.
Yeah.
Like this January coming up, literally was an unknown. I mean, Arkansas, give me a break.
Yeah.
Governor of Arkansas is, kind of the same thing with Jimmy Carter, Mm-hmm. I mean, so just... These people have been campaigning for a year.
I hear there's a young ingenue named Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
May step in.
That's right. Because she don't need no stinking primary to get in. She can run anyway.
Get out of the way, Bernie.
That's it. Get out of the way, Liz.
That's it. Oh, she fell down the stairs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. She bumped into a door. She hit her head. Whatever.
And I since I mentioned Liz, I'm just going to bring up this other thing real quick that she had this week. Did you see the Billionaire Tears coffee mug?
No.
She's marketing now in order to raise funds, I guess, or just as a marketing technique or whatever. She's got a coffee cup, and it says "Billionaire's Tears."
Now you ask yourself, where did she get that idea? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's been around for a long time.
I know, but there's a guy. Is it Louder with Crowder or one of those guys? It's on.
Shapiro. It pushes his leftist tears.
Is that what it leftist tears? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean that's. It's been. I remember a law professor would have student tears on his coffee.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
Seems like that's been around for a while. But so anyway, my point though is not that she has this mug. Well, two things. It is interesting that she's selling it on Shopify, who's owned by a billionaire, so he gets a cut.
Okay.
Just the irony is just
the irony. It's so thick.
You just drown under the weight of the irony. But no, the more interesting thing to me is just the open class warfare. She's literally advocating that if you're rich, just because you have money, that you're bad.
Right.
You're a bad person. Just because you had, no matter how you got it, billionaires shouldn't exist. So you should have given away more of it before you got to be a billionaire, apparently. And if you didn't, you're just evil, and we can take your cash.
And we can take it. Never mind, of course, that you're, creating jobs. It's going to go someplace anyway, even if it goes to your heirs.
Well, that's what, again, we've talked about this.
But we know how to spend it better.
Right. Exactly. We talked about this last time.
And we're going to take it anyway. I don't care whether you like it or not. We're taking it because we can spend it however you're spending your money today. No.
Well, they tell you how in their advertisement for the program.
Really?
Well, they say, the billionaire could buy his fourth yacht, or we could use it to fund public schools.
Right, I saw that.
And it's like, what? Really? You think that's what Bill Gates is doing with his cash, is buying his fourth yacht?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's got a polio foundation. So it's, as I've said in the past, if Elizabeth Warren did get his money, what's she going to do? Start a polio foundation? And then...
Got one.
Right. Well, and then you have to have somebody smart to put in charge of it. So you put Bill Gates in there.
That's right.
Just put your name on it. Government did this, and then it's the same exact thing. So, no, people, I don't think have realized that the billionaires don't have the money laying around, cash. You can actually be totally cash starved and be worth $1 billion, or certainly not enough to pay huge the type of taxes that they're contemplating.
Well, the studies have all been done. This is, as you say, this is the absolute, the warfare. This is the most horrible kind of warfare you can imagine.
It is. I mean, it's so prejudiced. It's so prejudiced to just say.
And what they're doing, it's so funny. I'm a uniter, not a divider.
Right.
No, you're not.
No.
You are. And in fact, it turns out that the billionaire class, the wealth tax, starts at like 10 million or something.
Oh, I'm confident. I'm confident.
It's not a billionaire. You only have to be a multi-millionaire to be hit with this a wealth tax that will, certainly. And the goal is to reduce them down. Here's the equalization. We're not going to lift anybody up. We're going to put everybody down.
Well, look, I think they sincerely think that they can lift people up in their delusion somehow. Like Bernie says, with Bill Gates' $100 billion, we can cure homelessness. No, you can't. You can't. You already blew that with the cash you already spent, whatever. But it's just they don't even see the concept of the prejudice that's involved. And so anyway, I don't know. That's Liz's. That's my thing. My rant on Liz.
Rant on Liz. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me move on.
Go ahead.
To something else, because we got a couple other things to talk about. One thing, just as a quick thing, I had it in here because it came in. A former Marine, 30, kills both his parents and 2 family dogs before walking into a police station, blood-stained shirt, and confessing to the murders. Oh. He's been charged with murdering his parents after he turned himself in. It's right here in Florida, up in Crestview. Panhandle. And so the motive behind the murders, which took place, and they give the address for God's sakes, has not yet been determined by the investigators. I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, here's a guy who's a former Marine who obviously has all kinds of PTSD. And you don't do this kind of what sets him off in this kind of a rage. And this, when you talk about this stuff, the 22 suicide on average, there's 22 suicides, not Marine, but military suicides a day.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff that happens with your PTSD. And of course, the way to stop this PTSD, is, as far as I'm concerned, is don't send them over there in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you there.
It's interesting because we just got finished with Veterans Day or whatever it was, and the soppiness that came out, thank you for protecting me, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I wasn't really all that worried about even the Iranians, storming the beaches in Delaware. I just wasn't all that worried about it.
Well, that's interesting because that's the one area that the people on the right always do their gaslighting about. It's, oh my God, the military is out of cash. We got soldiers in the field with no boots on, right? They're just barefoot running around. That's what we.
Well, that's one of Trump's big thing is he loves the military. Yeah.
Well, that was what he got out of the last spending bill. Was a big increase in military spending.
Yeah,
and everybody jumped on board.
Just what we needed.
Yeah.
And speaking of the government people, though, we need to talk a little bit about Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
She's now moved on from quid pro quo because it's in Latin. And
right.
Nobody understands. So now the new word du jour is bribery.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that.
So anyway, for holding back Ukraine's military aid and escalation of Democrats' impeachment attack, it says public testimony makes what Nixon did look small. Who was a cover-up guy, whatever his administration was. But it's interesting that this is I don't know when they're going to get around to the Nazi part, but they're going to, some people have done that already. Nancy Pelosi, she accused Donald Trump of bribery, and of course that's the new word. I didn't watch the Sunday shows this morning, but I would imagine that all of the shows are talking. The people that are the administration people on those shows are talking about bribery.
Yeah. Apparently they focus tested that word.
Yes, they did. Right.
But I don't know. But here's the thing. Again, they got the problem of the explanation. What I said from the beginning is you're not going to have a successful impeachment conviction if you have to explain why the act was illegal in some way. And when they talk about bribery, the problem is that he didn't. It wasn't that he gave them something to get something, and that's what everybody understands as bribery.
Yeah.
Like, for example, let's say he had given Ukraine aid, and then they did the investigation,
right.
and he didn't hold it up in any way. Well, then you could say he gave them aid.
Yeah.
So he held it up. So now you're saying, well, after he released it in the end, Is that the bribery, or was it the hold-up thing? Is it an extortion thing? Is it a reverse bribery? It doesn't. They still don't have a good explanation for how.
The problem is, my son, you're making sense, and this doesn't work.
I'm just from a legal perspective. They don't have a good explanation. Holding up something that somebody would have gotten, which ultimately was released to them anyway, and trying to negotiate for something that they should have given in the interim anyway. That is investigation about whatever. Corruption, and then the whole thing is about an investigation, as I said from the beginning.
Right. People
just intuitively hear that and they think, well, who can't withstand an investigation? What's the problem with an investigation?
Right, exactly. If you didn't do anything wrong,
that's it.
What's the problem here?
Yeah. So, I think they're going to do whatever.
Well, we've got a year before the actual election, so it'll be interesting to see. Mm-hmm. So anyway, she said the transcript of Trump's call, this is what Scott Adams talks about. You see this movie, and there's two entirely different interpretations on the movie, and one of the call was release the transcript, nothing to see here, perfect call, says the administration, and the other people say this is devastating testimony of the top U.S. diplomat, and of course because the two people that testified the other on Tuesday, I think. They recalled what had happened, and of course the Democrats, even though it was all hearsay of hearsay, they said this is devastating. The Trump. Now we can impeach Trump and get him out of office. So the devastating, and Assistant Secretary of State George Kent confirmed the bribery charge. Well, no, they didn't. I mean, if you look at what the guys said, it was all hearsay. So what was also interesting about this, anybody will tell you that apparently nobody at this point knew that the 400 million or whatever was being held up. The president of Ukraine apparently was not aware that it was being held up, or it wasn't part of the discussion.
I think I mentioned last time that they did find out at some point.
Right. Well, that's why they're having all this impeachment business and so forth. Well, we're going to get a little bit more to that thing because it was interesting. Is one of the little things I got here and pulled it out is there's hardly ever a formal quid pro quo involved in foreign aid. That is, U.S. officials do not expressly say to a foreign leader, if you agree to become a loyal member of the U.S. empire, and support whatever the empire does, we will send you hundreds of millions of U.S. dollars. What's interesting about this to me...
Well, we do that sometimes.
We do it a lot.
Yeah.
We do it totally. But one of the things that I was listening to one of your law tapes, and they were talking about what the government aid is to the states. Highway funds,
right.
All the education funds. The states can, as we have done here, you can turn it down. They bribe you. They say, if you will do your Highway 75, or if you'll do your upfront education, what do you call it? No child left behind. We will give you education funds. It's bribery, out and out bribery.
Well,
I mean, they don't have to take the money. The states, in fact, here in Florida, we turn down Medicaid money.
Yeah, look, and the reason that these terms are getting conflated is because people are just not using specific language. It's not bribery if you offer someone to do something that it's perfectly okay for them to do. Like, if I bribe you to mow my lawn and give you $20, that's not bribery. That's just me paying you to do something. Bribery includes some element of deception or some type of some bad act by the person who's being bribed. They have to do something illegal.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, that's another reason why the theory fails, is because the president of Ukraine can do the investigation if he wants to.
Right.
So it's not anything that, I mean, he can do it if he wants to, if he doesn't want to, if he flips a coin and gets heads or tails, if Trump says the last word I liked what he said right at the end there, so I'll do the investigation. He can do it for whatever he wants. It's not anything bad for him to do the investigation. the implication when you hear it repeated is that he's going to do some type of illegal investigation, that he's going to invade Biden's servers or something, or the DNC again, or in some way do some illicit act. But without that part of it, you have another part that fails. And,
yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. I did on your particular tape. This was one of your law tapes or whatever, and it's interesting because that guy used the word bribery.
Okay.
And now of course it's a stretch, but he said the federal government bribes the states to do certain things with money. And as I say, they don't have to.
I mean, to my perspective, that's just not bribery.
Okay, I understand.
That is incentivizes them to do it. This offers them a trade or a contract or something.
Right, and that's right. And of course, when I go to a garage sale, is it bribery when I say, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $10 for that"?
That's it. And is that mafia tactics?
Yes, it is.
That's right.
I got it. He sees me holding a gun.
You know what? You really want to sell me that?
That's right. I'm going to make an offer you can't refuse.
That's right. And so that's what they're doing is they're reading all sorts of malicious intent into the phone call, and you can do that. You can draw those inferences if you want, but you're going to have to prove all that stuff. And the only difference that they have in this situation from a normal court of law is that it's not a court of law. All the rules aren't in place in advance, and so you can make up the rules, which means you can have hearsay and hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay, and if you deem it to be valuable information, then there you go, you have it. So we'll see how everybody plays it out, and they're certainly welcome to do this kind of stuff. But it's to me, I think it's a sorry use of their time. I'd be embarrassed personally to do it.
I would be too.
You see this kind of thing though. Now they've influenced. Now we have this week at the University of Florida, some political students have introduced articles of impeachment for the student government.
For the student government president. Yeah, right.
Because he had Doane Jr. to speak.
Right.
And what their allegation is that just by the very fact of them bringing in a candidate's son, that they are making a political statement.
Right.
Which is a ridiculous claim, but it should be thrown out in the courts. We'll see, whatever it is.
Of course, again, that's the student kangaroo court. So
but we've got these parallel situations going on, and so we'll see what happens at both. On both
that's
levels.
what they're doing over at the. Well, you went to the Tallahassee.
Yes, and it was the same kind of thing. And what you're talking about is in the state of Florida, we have something called Youth in Legislature. Some of y'all remember. And what happens is once a year or every couple of years, a bunch of students from around the state gather in Tallahassee and take over the legislature for a couple of weeks. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, what's amazing to me, was shocking to me, was the number of measures that people wanted to pass that they had lightly considered the effects of,
right,
and that we debated for soundbite level time periods, and then voted upon, and they were passed into law as though they were well considered efforts.
Right.
It was a sham of a sham. And yet, to me, it almost seems to reflect reality more than.
Well, you have noticed that some of those people that attended that kind of stuff are in our office today, are in the city commission.
Well, I mean, they have to be somewhere, I'm sure.
But I mean, that's where they get their training, I guess.
You hope not.
Right, you hope
fingers
not.
Crossed is all you can.
Oh God, okay. Which reminds me, speaking of the testimony, I don't have it on here, but what's her name, Vianovich or whatever?
Yeah.
She well, no, I forget what her name is, and but she was apparently she was the
former ambassador.
Former ambassador to the Ukraine. Well, it's interesting because she'd been apparently also the former ambassador to Somali or something. Apparently, she's quite well versed in the languages and so forth. Here's my understanding. But Trump fired her at some point. It wasn't all that long ago, but she finally let her go because she wasn't doing the job or what. So anyway, she was called to testify on Thursday, I guess it was. And what I found fascinating was that they were the split between the Dems and the Repubs on the questioning, and the fact she was a hero a hero for having done what she did. She was a person that everybody should emulate. Woman rising to the top, glass ceiling, be damned, whatever it is. And what I thought was interesting about it was while she's testifying, Trump tweets out that she was worthless and she didn't do a good job in Somali and good riddance to bad rubbish or whatever the hell it was. That was while she was testifying. So, of course, right away everybody starts screaming witness intimidation, which I thought was kind of humorous since she never would have heard that except for the fact that Schiff puts it up on the big screen and reads the tweet.
Yeah.
And then says, how do you feel about that?
Right, yeah.
And she's almost in tears. I mean, she was
got slammed by the president.
I know, but still, my point is that she never would have known that after she left. So you want to know about witness intimidation? Schiff should have been put, except they're immune. Of course.
Right. But no, you're absolutely right. From a legal theory perspective, the fact that he was the one that published the information to her,
right,
that undermines the theory completely from the standpoint of him being the accuser. But he wouldn't be the accuser in a court of law. It would be somebody else. So look, you can't intimidate somebody, a witness, in tweets. You just that's not how it works.
Well, what's interesting, I thought that they immediately after the tweet became public, the people in the impeachment hearing said this is witness intimidation,
I know.
And now we're going to add this.
Yeah, I know.
To the
well, this is just it just shows you that they don't have something else that's better than that.
Right.
Ahead of that they can rely on. They need another thing.
This is what but they're going to. I guess the articles of impeachment are going to read like. They might read like the Declaration of Independence. Have you ever read that big long thing when the king did this and that and blah blah blah? And there was like 28 things in there.
Of course, it's going to read like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. Anyway, I thought that it was interesting that here's this steel, she backbone of steel, whatever lady, can't be intimidated by anybody, but she was. They claimed that she was there. So.
Well, he is the president. I'm sure it was intimidating, but let's face it. I mean, she's a fired employee. She's going to be disgruntled, and she's going to play whatever cards they offer. And they're softballing her all the cards to play.
Sure, right.
But
so this was, I guess, a gift from this particular tweet was, as far as Schiff was concerned, was a gift from God. Here we found, and now I can really read this into the record. Yeah.
Well, it's like, oh, shocking! Trump is threatening in a
bombshell.
Yeah,
bombshell. Okay, moving on to other things in Florida here.
Okay.
I thought this was kind of interesting. I never thought this was a big deal. Fuel theft rings fill South Florida roads with moving bombs. I thought this was kind of interesting. Anyway, these criminals in South Florida, what they're doing is they're going up to gas stations and they've got their pickup truck or whatever it is with a bladder in it.
Okay.
And so what they're doing is they're stealing essentially either with a stolen credit card or something, and they're filling up 200-300 gallons of fuel, and then selling it. Down, I don't know where they're selling it exactly, but of course you have to have a buyer. But apparently this is a big deal. They can make a ton of money when you steal the fuel. And they said one of the gas station attendants was kind of curious to see that that this pickup truck was getting 300 gallons of fuel, and he thought this doesn't quite right. And so, but as he went out there, they ran off or something like that. But they found, I don't know, half a dozen or a dozen of these people with the fuel all in the truck. And what they do in South Florida, this is Broward County pretty much, which God, to think I used to live there. But they look for pickup trucks that are riding low in the road because they got an extra
but
1,000.
That's also a feature of the 90s sort of suspension effects. They would. Low rider is.
Oh yeah, no, I know that, but I'm saying, but the low riders were mostly for cars.
Well, no, I mean they started doing it for all kinds of pickup trucks and
Yeah, but usually by then they have a fancy paint job or
Yeah.
something on them. Or
Yeah.
no, this is just a regular old rungy. This is it came out of the vegetable garden and
Right.
usually would be hauling
So
watermelons.
so what you do is you disguise your truck now with a bunch of fancy paint job and lights and
Yeah,
everything.
right, exactly right. So anyway, but the point is that they're finding
Big signs says
and they
no pigs.
yeah, right, no pigs. So they moving time bombs because the hazard was if they were to crash and explode, which of course is true. I saw the other day where there was literally a real gasoline truck, with a big tank on it, and it it took out a couple of acres on the side of the road when it had a crash. So anyway, such fuel pilfering cases are up in Broward County, and so far 16 people. They've detained more than 30 vehicles with these fuel bladders or concealed fuel. And to me, what I'm wondering about is, what really is it that bad? Two things: fuel prices are up. Okay, I understand that. But actually, it ain't that bad when you consider what it used to be. We're at $2.34 or something, $2.50 a gallon.
Okay.
Roughly, is what we are here in Gainesville. Okay. And it's, what you got to ask yourself, first of all, are you so desperate that you're going to pay some bootlegger guy who pulls up beside you and is going to, fill your tank up or something for how much money, how much are you going to save? If you've got a 20-gallon tank, you maybe save $20 or something. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty meager grift at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
they seem to think that the way somebody did it and said it's actually more lucrative apparently than some other kinds of smuggling.
Well, I mean that's what you compare it to.
Yeah, that's why it is.
Right.
I mean, you can imagine what the penalties are, for instance, in New York for cigarette smuggling.
Right.
Right out of what was it? What was the movie with what's his name?
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy. Oh my God! No, it wasn't 48 Hours.
Yeah,
It was
Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, the first one. How about hey, my man? They did 2000. I'm not doing that. 2000. God, he was great. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that this is a new thing. Fuel stealing? I just thought, is it really that lucrative? I guess it must be. As I say, I wonder
Does it have a location where this was happening?
Yes, down Broward County.
Okay, right, yeah.
So that's down near, that's just north of Miami.
Yeah.
The Fort Lauderdale area is what this is, Broward County. So it's a big population down there, but I just wonder how do you sell your stuff? I mean, if you're running down the highway and have a big sign on there that says gas for sale.
Yeah, there is a big fencing community in Miami.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, as someone who used to be a public defender in Miami. Yeah, there's a large black market because there's
No racist.
Yeah, right. There's a huge number of people there's a wide discrepancy in the wealth and a large number of very unwealthy people right next to a large number of wealthy people. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, no, you're right about that.
A big incentive for stolen goods.
Moving on to legal stuff.
Okay.
The federal court rules suspicionless searches of travelers' phones and laptops is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
This is apparently a huge Fourth Amendment victory.
Well, yeah. Well, it's at least some pushback in the right direction.
Right.
And basically what had happened, we've reported on this in the past, and that is Homeland Security basically declared a 100-mile range around the border of the United States.
Well, was it 100 or 50?
Well,
it's 100.
Yeah, I think it's 100.
Okay, because the beauty is it all of Florida.
Yeah, it covers all of Florida.
All of Florida.
Yeah, and
it overlaps. In fact, if you're in Orlando, you are covered by both borders, 100 miles.
Yeah, that's why I can't remember if there was a little opening there.
No,
anyway,
not in Florida.
So the point was is that you could be searched anywhere allegedly by Homeland Security or Border Patrol within this area, regardless of your constitutional rights. Well, it's been challenged. At least at some level, they've said no. You at least need the bare minimum articulable suspicion.
Right.
And so
they apparently were grabbing up people's phones and laptops and searching them, and just on a whim.
If you tell the authorities they can do it, they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I just thought, as I say, apparently they now have, as you say, pushed back on this, and it will be interesting to see because a lot of times they will you'll sit there to the authority. You see this on YouTube all the time where you say you're not allowed to do that, and they say yes I am. Yeah, whack. But I mean, you can't ask me for that. I don't have to carry an ID. Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, you do. I'm going to arrest you.
Yeah.
On what charge? I'm going to arrest because you didn't show me your ID. I don't have to show you my ID. I'm going to take you in.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? The guy's got a gun. So.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to show them your damn ID. Look, here's the deal. I tell everybody all the time, when you're out in the field, they have all the power. Your rights don't kick in until you get into court. So do whatever they say. You don't have to tell them who you are or give your ID if they're not in any type of investigation. That is, if you're just hanging out at the bar with a cop and they ask you what's your name, it's not illegal for you to say something. But if they're investigating something...
But they're always investigating. There's always extenuating circumstances.
Exactly.
Exigent circumstances. So I thought I smelled marijuana.
Exactly.
I mean,
I was investigating right before I looked over at that guy. He looked suspicious.
Right.
And all they have to do is say that. Or like you said, I smelled marijuana and it's over there. The investigation is on. So avoid them like the plague.
Yeah.
Don't get around them.
I just thought it was interesting. It says border officers must now demonstrate individualized suspicion of illegal contraband. But of course, like you say, they will say, I thought I saw the bulge of a gun in his shirt or something, whatever.
Right, and you're exactly right. They have to articulate something that's suspicious in and of itself.
Well, they always, different. Of course, the first, I guess, yeah, that's the second phrase that they learn in cop school. The first one is, "I feared for my life," but the second one, I guess, is, "I thought I saw something illegal." Or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, this is the last year the Border Patrol conducted more than 33,000 searches. Almost 4 times the number from 3 years ago. So, like I say, if they got the power to do it, they'll do it. Now, this I thought was fascinating. Everybody knows who the whistleblower is.
Okay.
Rand Paul dropped the C word, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That's the guy's name. Starts with C.
Starts with C. Said he might release the guy's name. His name is Eric Ciamarella or something like that.
Okay.
I got it here, Eric Ciamarella, and he named the whistleblower publicly, and he says, I think he needs to be pulled in public for 10. Now, it turns out this guy is a Democrat stooge. I mean, he was in Ukraine. Look, don't roll your eyes at me.
Well,
he's got a history of toadying up to the Democrat Party. And all their stuff and everything. He hasn't. Apparently, when they do a little research, they found out he does have sort of an axe to grind.
Right. Well, I mean, that still wouldn't. I mean, who cares? From my perspective, it's like if he had something credible to say, I wouldn't care what part of the aisle he's on. It's just a question of. I mean, look. The theory I think that you're pointing out here is the Republicans are saying, look, now that they've got the information out there, you bury the source because it would be detrimental to the argument, generally speaking.
Right. Well, I guess I guess that. What I thought was interesting was a little catchphrase at the end of this article was on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They had censored all mentions of the guy's name. Mm-hmm. So now that it's out. Will you now, if you mention it as we're mentioning it right now, on YouTube, are we going to get slammed? Yeah, right. All right. If you don't see this on YouTube,
that's right.
You'll know why. That's right. When it finally does come out, because we mentioned the guy's name.
That's right.
I thought that it was one of the things that I thought about was I was reading one of the people in the government said, look. The press knows who this guy is. All the senators and everybody, they know who this guy is. What do you mean you're not going to reveal his name?
Yeah. Well, look, it's a double standard because obviously if this was reversed, they'd be pouncing on the guy. But the problem is that this is actually the correct standard from the standpoint of, look, his past doesn't matter. Whatever it is, he might be predisposed to say whatever. I mean, it may matter at some level if you're going to cross-examine him.
Right.
And maybe Trump should get to cross-examine him about that kind of stuff. But generally, you can just evaluate the allegations and just go and just see what are we talking about here? And
Well,
they have a problem with that. So even
well, the other thing that was brought out again was that had this guy before he was outed as a whistleblower, he had been in contact with Schiff's office,
right?
And the
that
claim
comes down
now
to the
is
process of
right.
I mean, they should have verified where the information came from before they determined that this person qualified for the whistleblower statute, which to me, it didn't seem like they would because they learned it secondhand, which to me seems like they wouldn't have learned it during the official course of their duties. Because they weren't listening in on the call, and all the people who were listening in on the call didn't file the thing. I mean, it looks horrible, but we'll see whether or not anybody's really paying attention. We'll see whether or not there are a lot of people I know who say, oh, this is going to be great for the Democrats because they'll impeach him, and then they'll be able to say, when he's running for office next time, oh, it's our guy versus the impeached president, our guy versus the impeached president, just say it over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's other people who say, well, if this effort fails, then Nancy Pelosi is a failed House Speaker. Her legacy is destroyed, and everybody will hold it against the Democrats. And I tend to think it's somewhere almost exactly in between. Like,
really, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I think they're lynching them. So they're grasping at straws right now. And then it'll fail, and so the penalty for failure is failure. That's it. You don't get like an additional penalty for failing. You just didn't get to do whatever it is you would have done while you were in office because you were. My prediction is they're not going to impeach.
Interesting.
That's my prediction. No impeachment. There's too many Democrats that are in suspect districts, and they're going to be running for the office. Remember now, there's a whole bunch of them that just got in there.
Yeah.
And by the skin of their teeth. I mean, really. So the.
Yeah. Well, maybe this was Nancy's way of. Doing a little culling of the herd, little edges of the party.
Well,
a little riffraff, a little hey.
Yeah, well.
Right, we got a center of the party here, and if you're on the edge,
bye bye. We're going to cut you off. That's right.
I don't know.
Well, okay.
I think they will, but I think they'll try to drag it out as long as possible.
I think that's to their detriment. I think they're idiots to drag it out. One of the things that's going to happen is somebody was saying that if they start to drag it out past the primaries, I mean that's going to be bad news. I think for those guys running when you're running. Well, it's first of all it's going to suck some of the oxygen out of the air.
But you get
for the people running.
Yeah. But what you're theoretically doing is you're presenting the negative side of the president every day. It's like the Ollie North hearings. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, it was day after day after day of
that's true.
Just pounding on the guy.
Yeah.
And so you could theoretically do something like that, and then you hope it sticks. I don't know. I think it's a waste of time, but
I think it is.
I'm
agree.
fine with their wasting the time.
Right. No, that's right. They're not getting any mischief if they're doing that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. The next thing I've got a little side thing here because it's Sunday. Today, Kanye West is going to appear on stage with Joel Osteen.
Oh, is it today?
Today, that's right. In his mega church. Now, his church, Joel Osteen, is filthy rich because he's one of those, money
Catholic light or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. But he's one of those televangelist people that are always in it.
Hypnotist. Excuse me.
Yeah, right. That are really in it for the money. But I mean, for Kanye West to align himself with this charlatan. To me, I just don't get it. I mean, he's told everybody he has really found God. I mean, his total, which is fine.
And if that's true, then he'll be separated from Osteen in pretty short order. I think once he realizes Osteen's operation is a money pit, basically.
Right,
and he's one of those guys like Benny Hinn or whoever that's doing it.
Creflo Dollar Jr.
Creflo Dollar, man, knocking it home, man.
These guys, and I need a new jet.
Margot.
Margot. Right,
that favorite movie.
If you ever want to see a movie from the early '70s, it's what's it called, Margot.
Yeah.
And it's this
Marjo.
Is it Marjo? Okay.
Yeah.
It is available on VHS or whatever. No, it's available. But what it is, it's the story. It's a documentary about this guy who was a kid. And he was on Johnny Carson, and when he was 4 or 5 years old, he was a pastor, and he was performing marriages on TV. Yeah, and he was all dressed up.
His parents were like totally in the church or something.
Oh yeah, no, his parents. Oh yeah. Well, what happened was, by the time he got to be 18 years old, I mean, he was heralded as the new prophet.
Right.
And he would, basically
Scientology of its day.
I mean, but he was a kid. So anyway, when it got to be 18, he kind of realized, wait a minute. First of all, he realized that his parents had spent all the money. I mean, they had collected millions, and the parents went through it all. And so I think he tried to sue him or something. Anyway, he had learned the auctioneer speak that they use in the pulpit or on the stage, and I heal thee and all. He knew all of the techniques. So what he did is they made this movie called Marjo, and he went back into his shtick, and he said to the film crew, he said, now look, you might be a bunch of hippies and everything, but you can't come in here wearing earrings or anything like that. You have to remember what we're doing is we're making a positive documentary on how things work here. This is for the Lord, and so you have to pretend that this is not showing things up as it is. What we're going to do is we're going to that's so that the
I gotta watch it. Leap of Faith is the other good one.
Yeah. Well, that's Leap of Faith, and also the one with Burt Lancaster, which was the other one that he was a charlatan type guy. Anyway, the point being, in this movie, they in order to get into the background and have the other people didn't realize that they were pawns in this documentary, they had to pretend that the documentary was a positive thing for the Lord. And they showed in the back the money counting and who's going to do this, and he showed the techniques that they use for having people faint or whatever, all this kind of stuff, and how they select the people out of the audience that they can heal, and he went through the whole thing on this documentary, and it was really quite extensive to show how these people are charlatans and the money that's involved. And one of the reasons he did it, of course, is because he'd been robbed, by his parents.
So I think, drawing this back to the main point you brought up, I think Kanye, to me, Kanye is one of these guys who, I hate to say this, but he seems to me to be genuine.
He is. I think he is.
And
I think he is genuine. I mean, I really believe that he is genuine. And of course, the other thing is his album that came out went to #1, I think.
Yeah, well, that's to be expected just from the standpoint of his following and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see where he goes with this, but it's interesting that he would choose the mega church. I mean, the guy's got 100,000 seats in his church or something.
Right. Oh yeah. Crazy. Yeah, it's huge.
So it's not a bad place to start,
I suppose.
But
yeah.
I wonder how quickly he may disassociate from those guys.
We're going to find out.
Yes, we will.
All right. Next item. We're going to move overseas for a moment.
Okay. Overseas.
Overseas. We're going to the UK.
Oh, okay. I'm going to bring us to Venice.
Okay. Well, okay. That's where I think that's where some people do vacate.
Yes.
Occasionally, but Venice, boy, worst flooding in how many years? I mean,
climate change.
Climate change. That's right. They have. It's not like they haven't known in Venice for years.
Well,
that the place is sinking.
And the truth is that this could be Miami in just 1,500 years.
Yes, and I'm worried about that too. Meghan Markle is still waiting to become a British citizen.
Really?
Yes. It turns out.
Can't you just run into Grandma's room?
No, apparently not.
Have Grandma swat her with the sword or something?
Well, you would think.
Come on.
No, seriously, this is so funny.
The Queen can't just.
No, the Queen can't do it. I knight the anything. I welcome the. No, it's you have to follow the law, and the law says that you have to live in the UK for 3 years before you can be. 3 years. Now she's been there 2 years.
We don't need no stinking badges.
That's right. It might seem extraordinary given that she's married to the Queen's grandson for 18 months, but she accepts that it's a slow process. There are a number of ways you can apply for citizenship, but it's likely that Meghan is applying as a spouse of a British citizen. Yeah, well, she's in line to become queen or something. If someone comes to the country as the fiancé of a British citizen, they must marry within 6 months. Which the Duchess achieved by marrying in May of 2018. After living in the UK for 3 years, a spouse can then apply for citizenship, providing you have either indefinite leave to you're planning on staying there forever, a settled status under the EU settlement scheme, or a permanent residence document. But like you say, she can't become she's married to the prince, for God's sakes. Grandma, do you suppose you could make her a citizen anyway?
That's it.
But she has to wait at least another year before she can apply to become a citizen. It's just, to me, this shows the ludicrousness of the process on this, and it's...
Well, the UK has really led the charge recently in terms of their red tape. I mean, they've been...
Well, bureaucracies, one of the things, in one of the finest books you'll ever read, it's called Bureaucracy, and it's by Ludwig von Mises. It's a thin book.
Or you can just watch Brazil.
You can watch Brazil, or you can read The Law, Parkinson's Law. You can read Parkinson's Law, and there's a chapter in there on how bureaucracies must grow. They have no choice. They have to grow because they've got guns, of course. At the end, they've got guns. Speaking of bureaucracy, just for a minute here, digress on a branch here, I think it was one of the Cuomos. I forget. I think might have been the governor's kid or something.
Okay.
Well, it might have been a guy in government, but what they were talking about was, why don't you have Donald Trump get out of the way and let the bureaucracy do its work? They're the ones that really know what's going on, and if Trump wasn't interfering with the bureaucracy, they could get. And of course, the thing is, wait a minute, just a minute.
That's a general complaint that they've been trying to use against him.
But I mean, he does things. He owns. He can.
I know. Well, that was with this.
They are supposed to carry it, and whether they like him or not, they can be rabid communists. But when he says to the people overseas, the State Department people, this is my policy, and my policy is this, that, and the other, and thou shalt enforce it. I don't care what you think. And that's the thing about this guy, one of the Cuomos that was saying this to me was interesting. Was you shouldn't care what the policy is. You're a seasoned professional, and you do what you think is best. Right. I mean, this, to me, I was looking at this, I'm thinking, how can this guy look in the mirror and say, do you hear what you're saying?
Well, he's convinced himself that the president's corrupt. I mean, if you really believe that, if you really believe the president's just acting out of bounds and doing crazy stuff, and he's incompetent and insane or something, then you would hope, they do the Wilson thing on him, but that whole effort has failed from the beginning, and clearly he's not incompetent and insane, and he's just doing stuff they don't like.
Right, that's for sure. And of course, they're going through this. They're desperately trying to get him out of office. They're trying to override the election, and
that's what it appears.
It's a coup.
Well, not yet.
No, not yet. That's right. Okay, right. I got one last thing.
Okay.
Apparently there's this huge show in either Australia or the UK, I don't know which, where they have it's called the Bush-Tucker Trials, and apparently what they do is it's like Survivor Man. Only they have Survivor Man was the guy that went out by himself and stayed in the bush or whatever it was. But then the other one was called Survivor, where they put a couple of gangs on an island, and they filmed them.
And they fought?
No. Oh. This was the one where...
No, I know.
They had the games
and
everything, the whole deal. But what happened was, and this is a combination of the two, where they have the gangs, and and they go out and they try and survive, and it's a group, and they put them on an island or whatever. So in the surviving part, what they do is they eat bugs and worms and stuff. Well, the Peta people, whatever they are, came in and said they banned the eating of live insects. And so the activity last year, beach worms were the only critters eaten alive. Apparently, what happened was what really set him off was this one guy ate a live spider. And so the animal rights people came up and said, no. This is, and let's see, after all, animal rights activist Tanya Simmons wrote a piece for the Metro UK calling for the use of all live animals in the program's trial to be banned. Tanya writes, not only does this harm the animals involved, but also normalizes animal cruelty to the audience of millions, including young children. And I'm sitting there. They apparently after eating the spider, there was the BBC switchboard lit up with people saying you can't do that. The spider people apparently called up the spider lovers. Apparently said you harmed this. I don't know whether it was a tarantula or what, but
necrophiles everywhere.
Well, in 2010, the show was filed by the RSPCA, which is the Australian thing, for killing and cooking a rat. They had apparently they had caught her, and of course I always say, well, it wasn't a great rat, but it was an acceptable rat. Yeah. But I mean, they killed this rat and ate it, and I'm sitting there thinking, but that's what you do in the wild. It's a rat, and so they were fined by the Aussies version of the SPCA. I just thought it was, for killing and eating a rat. Boy, what these people won't do. I mean, and so anyway, this show
cleaning up society. Man.
I know, but then what happens is
one bug at a time.
One bug at a time, right? Well, as I say, they had apparently previously banned arachnids and legged live creatures, but when they went out, it was a bridge too far when they ate the worms. Now they banned the worms. Anything alive now is now banned. So I just thought, this is when I think about that show that was on for a while. And was it Joe Rogan? He was
Fear Factor.
Fear Factor, right? Yeah. And they would dump cockroaches and everything on people. How long can you? I just
and they would eat them too. Well, and in Japan, I always think of this. There's this one dish in Japan where they pull out these eels out of this tank, and they set the eel down in front of you, and then they nail it to this board, and then they leave. There you go. There's your food right there.
There's your food, yeah.
And it's just wiggling and doing whatever, and you just...
Well, but and that's another thing that I don't know why it wasn't banned, but one of the really delicious Klingon dishes was something that looked like maggots. Yeah, right, maggots all alive, and they're scooping. And I don't know why they didn't ban that show.
Yeah, that's really disrespectful to
I tell you, that's
Klingon
right.
maggots.
Yeah, that's right, the Klingon. Anyway, that's pretty much what I have.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything much. I've got two real quick things. One, did you notice that they burned down the central bank in Iran?
No.
Yes.
They burned it down?
Protesters torched it. And
God, that's the Eccles building here. If they could torch that place.
And they got away. I mean, you can see it. I mean, it is smoke billowing out. It's bad. I mean, they torched the crap out of it.
God, well, I guess it's because is that where they print the money?
I don't know exactly what building it is. I mean, it said the central bank.
Wow.
But it's just the concept that, oh, really? You think you can control the people? Well, how about this? How about a little fire?
Right. Yeah. Right.
And in a parallel situation, apparently Bolivians have moved through the countryside and burned a bunch of police stations.
Really?
And of course, and what they're aiming to do is erase criminal records. And I mean, it's gone. I hope you got a backup somewhere. And that station's on fire too.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's right. Well, that is fascinating because one of the things that I read that apparently the United States was involved to some extent, and our own Marco Rubio, they said, and I don't know, I haven't written him a letter to find out, were part of the coup that got rid of Maduro.
Oh.
And because he fled, but apparently the people that
you mean Morales?
Morales, I meant. That's right, Morales, right. So I'd be interested to find that out. But yeah, the people, when the people start burning their records, can you imagine you run up into Atlanta and you burn all those tapes, your IRS tapes?
Yeah, well, it just goes to show you there's a little bit more power. The people have a little bit more influence than you might.
Well, one of the things that I think about, people are always talking about, you got I want to keep my guns because what if the government comes after us? Well, you're not going to stand up to them because blah, blah, blah. Well, you think about that little movie, actually it was done twice, where the Russians came in through Mexico or something, and the high school students went into the hills.
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn, yeah, that's right, Red Dawn. And but they basically do what they do, and that's the guerrilla tactics. And you can do a lot of things.
And it's even better than that from the standpoint of if you're the people, because in that situation, the Russians weren't afraid to shoot the crap out of everything and kill whoever they needed to.
Right.
But if it was really an internal strife, the army or whoever would be called out to quell the unrest would have to be very, very precise, and they would have to they would be loath to do carpet bombing or anything.
I don't think so. I think they could be led into it, and I'll tell you why. Well, look at Kent State, for instance.
Yeah, but 4 people. Okay.
But and you're right. After the first couple, they went through. But then I also look at the Berlin Wall. I mean, the simple fact was, if you wanted to get out, you were going to get. They shot them.
No, there's no question. And in individual circumstances, you would see that. But what I don't think you would see is Sherman burning his way through Atlanta to the sea, type of a thing anymore.
Interesting.
Now. Here's what we're about to see, and this is the last thing that I have, is we may be about to find out exactly how far a totalitarian state is willing to go to put down the unrest when it comes to Hong Kong.
Ah, yes.
Because apparently they've also been using fire, and there's an internet video this week of them firebombing a military vehicle, an armored truck type of thing.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently now there's Chinese military on the streets in Hong Kong, and as we've been talking about since the beginning of this, the people do not have the upper hand in that situation because it's a different group coming in. It's not the same people. It's a tantamount to an invading army.
Right. Yeah. It's not like because it's one thing when you go to the National Guard people and you say, "Hey Bob,
that's right.
You're my neighbor.
You gotta go back to your neighborhood, and bring this AR-15 with you. Versus, hey, we need you to go down to Mexico or someplace.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's
Canada. Kill a few Canadians.
It reminds me of the one of the great scenes in To Kill a Mockingbird, where the crowd is coming to lynch the guy in the jail, and Gregory Peck is standing there, but little what's her name shows up, and hi, Mr. So and So,
right,
how you doing? Thank you. I mean, you talk about shame, and then they were getting ready to
shutting them down.
I mean, really.
That's right.
Say hey to Bob for him.
That's right.
What a great
different
scene.
situation.
Different situation.
But yeah. So but Hong Kong, get out while the getting's good is what I'm gonna say, man. So.
Okay.
All right, that's all I got.
Well, we're right on time, just about. This is good. Had a good time.
Hey. Thanks for joining us, Kenny and Scott. Appreciate it. These tracks brought to you by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it. Oops. That's not
Where
the
are you?
shot I wanted.
Where'd you go?
I'm transported down to the. Let's see. Where's this is what I want.
There you go.
I'm constantly.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you're producer and everything.
That's right. So we'll be back on Wednesday, the 20th.
So are there more hearings this week, I guess?
Oh, I expect them to continue.
Tuesday and more witnesses, more hearsay?
Oh, we'll see. Yeah, wait. Right at the end, they're going to bring in the smoking gun and the
Yes.
video.
That's
and
right.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the coup de grace.
That's right. Hold your breath.
Hold your breath. Yeah, right. Until I turn blue.
All right. See you soon.